Welcome into the 615 Sessions podcast on this Thursday afternoon. Lovely to have you guys in for another episode. We got the Hall of Famer, Teresa Walker of the Associated Press, is spending her time here with us. Always a pleasure to have you, T.
It's my pleasure to join you, Buck, and because it's been a minute since I picked on you, so it's always good to join you and try to figure out another new way to, just kind of jab the needle a little bit. I can't help it.
I'm sorry, like what you're demanding a regular appearance for no other reason than to talk shit to me?
Is that a bad thing?
No, but I mean it's good for the audience, I guess. I don't necessarily love it, but I guess
Hey,
for people's entertainment, I'll make it happen.
well, that's the thing. It's getting tougher to pick on you because one, gosh, you've gotten as skinny, almost as skinny as I have. We're both way thinner than we were a year ago,
Yes, ma'am.
and we're healthier. You're doing things a little better most of the time. I'd have to look. I'll be honest. So, oh darn, that almost comes close to a compliment. I got to stop that.
Bert will literally take you off the podcast if you continue to gas me up. There's nothing that bothers either of the people that work on the show more than compliments for me. But either way, Teresa Walker is not here to compliment me, although she
No.
might make fun of me from time to time. We are here to talk about Titans training camp. It's, for all intents and purposes, concluded. There will, of course, be a preseason game on Friday as we stream this live on a Thursday afternoon. So pending the results of that, we'll have a conversation about the players who we feel like they've helped their stock the most and players who we feel like have done themselves the most harm from the start of training camp to the end of it. We'll quickly remind you that the podcast is presented by Relax the Back, hashtag We Got Your Back Nashville, your one-stop shop for your back support needs, whether it's mattresses, office chairs, standing desks, and everything in between. RelaxTheBack.com will get you covered. And of course, Two Rivers Ford, the best car buying experience possible. 40 years here in Middle Tennessee. Two Rivers Ford, powered by Ford, driven by people. So Teresa, they'll have a walkthrough today, or I'm sure have had a walkthrough by this point in the afternoon. And, they'll have the preseason finale on Friday. Their quarterback plan, as yet, we're unaware of it, though it seems like things with Will Levis are trending positively in that direction. I wonder how, between the two quarterbacks, who you think needs this opportunity more?
Levis. It's very simple. This is a guy who he alternated every other series, every two series in the preseason opener with Willis. Then he hurt the quad, it appears, according to his old offense coordinator at Kentucky, in the joint practices with Minnesota. So he didn't see the field in the game in Minnesota. He missed a couple of practices once they got back to Tennessee. So it's like, let's be honest. We all want to see what Will Levis has. This is the guy that, they traded up to get the 33rd pick overall. We've seen Will Levis start games, not just this year, but last year. We've seen the improvement. It feels like the ceiling rather, for Levis is higher than Malik Willis at this point, but we don't know that. And honestly, put me in the category of I don't need to see Ryan Tannehill. Put him, DeAndre Hopkins, Derrick Henry in bubble wrap until September 10th when they open the season at New Orleans. I want to see Will Levis. I want to see how he handles starting a game, how he handles working behind. I'd like to see him work a series or two behind the starting offensive line. And then I'd like to see him work with the other guys. Malik Willis has been around. I want to see Levis. This is the guy who, let's not forget, if he had come out in the same draft as Malik Willis, he may have been the first guy taken, allegedly, reportedly, possibly by, so I want to see what he's done and how he's improved because, going into the, break between offseason program and training camp, he had a big gap to make up and play catch up with. And it looked like he did that over the week before he got hurt. And, yesterday being in the bubble, him back at practice, that was nice. Wasn't enough. I want to see more.
I'm sure Titans fans, for the most part, feel the same way. And, we had the discussion about Tannehill in the preseason today on the radio show. And I understand that about half the league has played their starting quarterbacks in preseason. I just don't think that a guy who's been in 145 career games, Teresa, needs a drive in a preseason game. It's not going to turn him into Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen to accomplish whatever rust he needs to knock off. He's been practicing just fine. He's been practicing with the first team offense. If they use September as their preseason as opposed to August for the first team, I'm completely comfortable with that, especially, as you've said, given the unique situation behind Ryan Tannehill right now, where these dudes just need opportunities to play and basically won't get them after Friday's preseason action concludes. There's not going to be first team reps or consequential team reps to go around. The rosters will be cut down. The backup quarterbacks will be relegated to practice squad roles, for lack of a better term, not practice squad specifically, but they will be out there with the scout team roles rather. And Ryan Tannehill will proceed forward as this year's starting quarterback, and that will be about that until such time, or for whatever cases he has to miss time due to injury or otherwise, God forbid. But I think with Levis, it still feels like Malik Willis has a place on this roster just because Levis has been unavailable for about a week and a half now, Teresa, because the improvement with Willis is not such that I feel like if he were to have to play for whatever circumstance, it would probably be an improved experience from what 2022 was. But I don't think it would be much further improved to the level of a replacement level player in the NFL.
Agreed. I mean, let's put it this way. I mean, I do think that they would trust Willis to throw the ball more than once in the second half, like they did of his first start in Houston, where they literally rode Derrick Henry's back yet again against the Texans. But after his performance in Kansas City, where he had a ball drop by a guy who's no longer on that roster, he seemed to kind of regress a bit. Now this year, Mike Vrabel has talked about the glaring improvement. That's fine. But let's be honest, we need to see the options because he had the start. We saw some balls that, we saw some decision making. It still seems like he's got areas of growth to make. I want to see Levis. I want to see what he's done to grow, improve, what he's done behind the scenes in those walkthroughs, because he should be, we got to test him. And there's no better place to test him before the season opener than in this game tomorrow night. Because again, do you really want to see him, have to take a snap and start a game or, in September, October, November, December? I mean, my God, after what this team went through last year, starting Josh Dobbs in December, in January in Jacksonville, trying to get a playoff berth, a third straight division title. No one wants to see that again. You want to have a known quantity. And the only way to do that is by putting him under center Friday night at Nissan Stadium in a game that, while it honestly doesn't count, it does count because you want to see that pressure situation where he can be tackled. That's the difference between training camp and practice, is he can be tackled tomorrow night. And that's where those quote live bullets can be best simulated before the season.
Well, those 2 sacks that he took against the Bears, Teresa, he just doesn't have a feel for pressure. And that was a criticism of him in college, right? Like that was something that was with him at Kentucky. But the only way, I mean, to your point, the only way to improve upon that or to gain a better feel, if he's capable of doing so, is for him to rep it out.
Exactly. And that's the thing. We were all worried, it's like, oh, well, he played well when he had all those NFL drafted linemen. Last year he was hurt. He was trying to do more with less. There were all sorts of excuses, right? But what we need to see is, now that he's had those the live bullets, the ability to be tackled and sacked, what has he done is that internal clock speeding up? Has he improved? And yes, there should be improvement over these last couple of weeks, even with him just standing watching practice on Tuesday when they did that inter-squad scrimmage. He was on the field on God, today's Thursday. Yesterday was Wednesday. So yes, where has he improved? There should be some ability to see him have improved even with him just watching practices, taking the mental reps, quote unquote. So I want to see Will Levis. I mean, we know what we've seen in Malik Willis. There's a known quantity factor to Malik Willis. Sorry, we don't have that yet with Will Levis. And aside from his lifetime deal with Hellman's mayonnaise, yikes. I guess if you want to put that on your hamburgers, he told us that he only did that in the coffee for a joke. But I want to see how he handles guys who are desperately trying to earn jobs tomorrow night, and how he reacts to that pressure, because it's different from what he has faced to this point.
Agreed. And I'm glad that you brought up Malik Willis as a known commodity, Teresa, because it's not just this podcast that I do. I do another one with Greg Cosell on a weekly basis. And I thought Greg's analysis, I'm going to play a clip of it for you and for the audience here in just a second. I thought Greg's analysis of Malik from one preseason game to the next was pretty telling. And I'd like to get your reaction on that here in just a second, right after I remind the audience that the podcast, the 615 Sessions podcast, is made possible by Relax the Back. RelaxTheBack.com is where you go for unmatched relaxation from the comfort of your home. It helps you embrace wellness to improve your sleep. Mattresses, pillows, chairs for your office. If you're somebody who, like Teresa and I, you sit at a desk chair for many, many hours at a day, writing or researching or things of that nature, standing desks, things to improve your back and your wellness as a result. RelaxTheBack.com is where you go. So this was Greg Cosell on our podcast yesterday, Teresa, kind of explaining the devolvement in Malik Willis's game from this Bears preseason game to 4 quarters in Minnesota. What you made of Malik Willis having the opportunity to work through a variety of situations with that full start.
And in some ways, Buck, it's a perfect example of why the preseason is the preseason and why it's hard to overreact. I mean, obviously the week before, and I spoke about it, all I do, as you know, is react to what the tape shows. I don't make a judgment as to what a guy's career is going to be, particularly a young player. Obviously the week before, Malik Willis clearly looked much more comfortable as a player, just in everything he did. This week, he did not. Now, again, this is not going to be a judgment about what Malik Willis is going to be, next week, the week after, or 5 years down the road. But this particular week, he did not look comfortable. He did not see things clearly. He turned down a number of throws that were there. Those were the throws to make based on the route concept versus the coverage, and he turned those throws down. He did not throw the ball when he had to make those throws. And then there were also some inaccurate throws. I mean, I'm sure Titans fans all remember that shot play on the third possession, play action boot. It was a post deep over combination, and he had Westbrook-Ikhine wide open on the over route. He had unnecessary movement, which made him hurry himself and be late, and he ended up throwing the ball at Westbrook-Ikhine's feet. Those are throws you cannot miss. You don't get those kinds of opportunities that often for a big play. So, this was just a game where you could tell he just, for whatever reason, he did not see things clearly. I could tell by looking at his head that he just was not looking in the right place a lot. Again, as I always say, I never know the reason. He'd have to tell you, and he's not going to, nor is the coach, nor should they. But he was not a comfortable player in this particular game.
Yeah, and Vrabel said he didn't like the decision making with us on Sunday after the fact, right, Teresa? Like, he walked us through that, and he gave us some details about simulations or scenarios that they get to simulate in these preseason games. But he was critical of the decision making of Malik throughout the course of it.
Absolutely. If you remember that first game when there was a ball that, he put the blame on both Malik Willis and the receiver, but he was very clear that, that's a throw. The one to Westbrook-Ikhine is a throw that he's got to make. You don't. We're hoping that this new offensive scheme from Tim Kelly has guys schemed to be wide open or have more room to run and catch. But when you have a receiver in the NFL that is that wide open, you have to make that throw. That is the mark of being an NFL quarterback. And those guys who cannot make that throw, guess what? They don't stay around the NFL for long. So that's why we need to see, that's why the Titans need to see Will Levis and see what kind of improvement he's made in his decision-making ability and how fast he's getting the ball out. Because again, if anything that we've learned over these last 2 seasons, watching the Tennessee Titans, is in like that, somebody can be out and the next guy is up and he better be ready.
Yeah, it feels like Malik is backup by default right now, Teresa. And I think that speaks to your point of just needing to see as much of Levis as humanly possible, because I don't know that Malik, I don't know that he's a lock to make the roster right now. I feel more confident that they're going to keep 3 quarterbacks than I think that they're going to keep 2. It just feels like there's a bit more of a gamble element in not protecting yourself from variance that Levis may present, even if Willis isn't a complete product and we're grading on a scale not even of a backup quarterback for Malik Willis. It feels like when we talk about him, just on the scale that Malik has unto himself because of how developmental he projects to be, right? It seems like we're looking at that and saying, all right, back up because the other guy can't take it from you yet, not necessarily because you yourself have gone out and secured that position.
Exactly. And I kind of disagree with you with the change in rules this year, for that 3rd quarterback. I'm really curious to see if they do keep that 3rd quarterback, or if they cut down on Tuesday when the final deadline, by 3:00, they got to be at 53. Do they cut a quarterback and then maybe go get one of the quarterbacks who's let loose on the out there on the waiver wire by Wednesday? So I don't think it's going to be that easy to tuck somebody on the practice squad and say, yeah, we'll be able to keep them around, because if, both of these quarterbacks are young and too young to, that's the risk. Do you say, okay, we really like Willis enough, we need to keep him, we think we can get a better one out there based on draft position? Yes. If you're going to let a quarterback go, I think it's Malik Willis. He was the 86th pick overall last year by the last GM. Will Levis is the guy you traded up this year and took it 33 overall. So if you're cutting a quarterback, it's Willis. So which is why, again, we need to see Levis. So if you're making that decision that we're going to go with 2 and it's got to be Levis, you've got to see him. That's why I want to see him start tomorrow night's game, because you've got to see how he handles preparing as a starter, how he handles the pressure, the guys that are coming at him, trying to take him down, the decision making. All of that has to be gauged under the pressure of an actual game. No matter, yes, this does not count. It's an exhibition, but when some big 300-pound guy can knock you to the ground, I need to see how he reacts.
We've got some comments because the show is, of course, live streamed now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Pastor Raymond Little says, why do we assume Levis is better? Just my opinion. Appears the media is really pushing for Levis. Well, that's not what Teresa is saying at all. In fact, Teresa is saying quite the opposite. We don't know that Levis is better. That's why she says, that's why the line continues to be, Teresa, play him. And the idea that pushing for Levis over Willis, it's not, nobody has any kind of bias or agenda. To the best of my knowledge, it's that we see Malik Willis not improve at a rate that would be sufficient should he have to play. Teresa, I maintain that while he is improved as a player and has done well to work hard and try and improve himself, and there are areas that you can clearly identify how much progress he's made from year to year, that doesn't mean that he's ready should he have to play in an NFL game. And they cannot jeopardize the bottom falling out should, God forbid, something happen to their 35-year-old quarterback coming off of a high ankle sprain surgery.
Well, exactly. And that's the thing. It's an unknown quantity. We do not have a big enough sample size for Levis. There is a sample size for Willis. He's played games. He's played preseason games, and they've seen him at practices. They've got something to measure from last year to this year. We don't have that with Levis. It's a minuscule sample size with Levis. He didn't show up until the rookie minicamp in May. That was the middle of May. It is literally August August 24th, and he has missed some time because of an injury. So that's why you have to see some of Levis so that you can make a more apples to apples, or in this case, backup quarterback to backup quarterback potential decision from Willis to Levis. And again, if they're going with 3, then that eases the pressure a tiny bit, but not that much, because again, we saw last year that one hit and you might be needing that next guy. I'm flashing back to Jeff Fisher having to yell, "Hey, Rusty!" But it's like, it is that quick in the NFL. So they have to know without a doubt what they've got in Levis before the final cut down decisions, or they have to turn in 53 names to the NFL on Tuesday, along with all the guys they're releasing who are hitting the waiver wire. So they have to know something without a doubt by Friday night.
And whether they'll be able to do so definitively is the question, right? Because Levis is the biggest variable in all of this. At least with Malik Willis, there is a sample size. There is, evidence of progress, even if it's not to the extent that you can clearly see. Kenny Hill says, then why keep Malik if everybody is so sold on Levis? Again, you guys are misunderstanding. Nobody is sold on Levis. Nobody is sold on Levis. That is why Teresa, and I'm sure a lot of people would advocate to see more of Levis. There is no sold on either of them, and that's the problem. The biggest problem is that you don't know anything definitive about your backup quarterbacks. You have options, and that's a nice place to exist with Ryan Tannehill at this stage of his career. But right now, it's all very, very experimental. Teresa, before I let you get out of here, and you're good as always to join us, who would you say has improved their stock the most from the start of training camp to now? We'll see how much Friday does for some of these guys who are on the fringes, but we'll assume that Friday's results aren't without Friday's results in hand. Who do you think has improved their stock the most on this roster?
Colton Dowell. And possibly because of honestly, let's be honest, because of the injuries to Treylon Burks and Kyle Phillips, he's had, when guys are out, the other guys get to move up. To me, he's a younger, cheaper Racey McMath. Racey McMath has teased us. We've seen him make great catches on the practice field at times, catches that have not translated when he's had opportunities in games. He's also been hurt a lot. So you've got that guy. That's who I think has helped himself the most, because he's had a chance to move up the roster a little bit and get some more work with, instead of being on the third team catching passes from Levis or Willis, he's had a chance to catch some passes from Ryan Tannehill. So, can he translate that Friday night and do something in game to better his stock? With Kyle Phillips being out, I hate to say it, Mason Kinsey may end up getting a shot early just because, again, that lack of availability. Are they keeping 5 receivers or 6? And I think whether they keep 2 or 3 quarterbacks helps with that decision as well. So, that's the fun part about putting together this 53-man puzzle. Decision at one position, it reflects and impacts everything else across the rest of the line. Nicholas Petit-Frere, his suspension starts Tuesday afternoon. So, do you keep a guy that you might not otherwise keep because you don't have Petit-Frere? So it's going to be, but yeah, I like Colton Dowell. I see him making some catches. Josh Wiley was hurt early in camp. I've started to see him lately. Didn't see him and do some great things the other day. So I'm not sure if he's helped himself or hurt himself. But, that's the fun part of this time of the year. Injuries, missed playing time, mixed practice time, huge impacts on the decisions that will be made when that roster is cut down on Tuesday.
Yeah, somebody notes, Jonathan notes, I hate to say it, quote, Kinsey always getting dunked on. It's not a dunk on. It's the idea that their roster would be in a state where Mason Kinsey has a legitimate chance to make a 53-man roster. And, they need a backup slot, but without Kyle Phillips in the picture, it seems that he's going to miss at least the season opener, if not more games beyond that. Treylon Burks' status is far more optimistic, though there's no guarantee that he's available week 1. I don't, the case for Racey McMath is a poor one. And I think that, Colton Dowell, or if Colton Dowell, Kyrus Jackson, and Mason Kinsey are the 3, you'd almost think that the coaching staff, if it's just to get by for a couple of weeks, is going to go with a player that they know they can trust, and they know they can trust Mason Kinsey, which might seem like a joke or might seem counterintuitive to a lot of you, but that's something that is not without value. And you look around at, what's happening in San Francisco, and you say, well, Trey Lance is the 3rd overall pick at quarterback, and instead they've gone the complete opposite and started Mr. Irrelevant. Why? Because the coaching staff trusts him more and trusts the variance of him or lack thereof more than they do the other guy. So that's kind of the play. It's a different conversation, but there are parallels from that to the San Francisco quarterback situation.
Well, and don't forget, folks, that Ran Carthon is very familiar with Trey Lance. So if you're thinking, ooh, they'll let one of these guys go and go make a run at Trey Lance, well, maybe not. I mean, you would have, it'll be easier if they end up actually waiving Trey Lance next week, but then you're in that list of trying to get up the waiver wire. If Ran Carthon really loved Trey Lance, he had a chance to not trade up to get Will Levis, and could have maybe made that trade to go get Trey Lance. So he knows that quantity very, very well from his time in San Francisco. So that's why I want to see what happens tomorrow night.
She's Teresa Walker of the Associated Press. That's where you can read all the great work that she does on the Titans and all the teams in the state of Tennessee. Teresa, we appreciate your time as always, and I'll see you in the press box on Friday.
Good. And you'll